Let's make sure. Let's make sure. Alrighty. This is not my normal time to stream. Hopefully, I looked at the calendar. This should be clear. I'm on ZBrush 2025.3. I have a brand new computer, so this is going to be pretty good. I got my sound working. So much nicer. So what do we got? What do we got? Let's take a look. Show more options. And show more options. So in here, we have our NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5090 and our AMD Ryzen Threadripper Pro 7965WX and 128 gig of RAM, something like that. So we can run ZBrush, we can stream, and I don't have to use my little laptop anymore. Well, the bad news is I don't really have much of a agenda, so I'm just going to start with something. We can start with a sphere, I suppose. Let's go ahead and launch a sphere. Let's go make Polymesh 3D so we can sculpt on it. Tap X to go across the X axis here. And I don't know, we'll just start making something. I do have some streaming topics I could go over. Let me see here. Z-Remesher, character creator stuff isn't installed. It is a new Abracadabra Lady Gaga stuff we did last time. God, it's been a while. Oleg, thank you. I hope I hope to have a good stream. I don't have much, so if you have any questions or if you have any requests on something to make, you let me know. Z-sphere center line breaking. I don't know. Strokey, multiple subtools, cloth and thickness. That's right. Can I have a black and white live render in ZBrush? Yeah, so you mean, just to clarify, like while you're sculpting, you want it to look like a black and white stylized, like an ink drawing or something like that? So like while you're doing this type of stuff, it looks like, I don't know, a black and white thing. That's doable. Let me see. It's been a while since I've done it. So there is a difference between when you go up here to do a render. Boy, it's been a while since I've done this. Who dat? Excellent. If you have any questions or want me to sculpt something in particular, let me know. I don't have much of an agenda today. This is a off time for me. I usually do first Tuesday of the month, and I couldn't do that one. And then I got my new computer, and it's semi set up. So you let me know. Now, we were talking about rendering. One thing you can do is there are these BPR filters, but those only kick in like after you hit BPR. Then you can go through here and you can make it sepia toned, or if you hit the comma key, go in here to render sets. You can make it look like an ink drawing after you hit BPR render. Now, to make it look like an ink drawing while you're sculpting, you have to get fancier with your materials. Not impossible, but I will send you a playlist. Well, first, if you want YouTube videos that I haven't updated in a long time, I'm sorry about that. New job, no time. There's this, and then also in here, if you see ZBrush What's New, all this is all the ZBrush What's New up until I pieced out of existence, and then all the other stuff. So here's my entire portfolio, but in here is other resources for you. Now, the reason I bring that up is because while we're in YouTube, my playlist here, there's a really good one, Pablo Munoz Gomez. It's a little bit, it's older, but it's still relevant. The stylized rendering, this here. So this will give you a bunch of techniques, and I'll be honest, I don't remember what they are, but he has materials you can download and tweak, and while you're sculpting, you can get this really nice black and white Sin City look, comic book look if you want. I'm going to go ahead and move this down because I'm distracting myself. There we go. From Brazil. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Excellent. So having said that, I think, so if we go in here to our materials, I think I got some materials. Standard wood mat, eager, hair, redshift, Matcap. Let's go into Matcap. And I guess it would be, you know what, we might even have materials in here. Basically, it would be like here's a flat sketch, hair sketch, something like this. So wall, and I really wish I did this more often. Here's like a sketch 04. So while you're sculpting, you can have like a, a black and white render of sorts. And then, oh, can I remember? It's under materials. You can play around with the modifiers, obviously. And in here, you can change this. You can actually go into Photoshop and change this. You can just make a sphere and then just light the sphere however you want and then bring it in here, just load it as a texture and then swap it out. What else can you do? Colorize depth, edge detection stuff. It's all in here. I don't do it that much. Monochromatic. Oh, here's monochromatic. Okay, let's try that. So let's go over here to just a blend material that we're using. And then if we, oh, this has different settings. Okay, so there is standard materials and then there's the Matcap material. So if we go here to shiny, this one has, okay, so you can, okay, so black and white live render. If you're using a Matcap, go over here to monochromatic A and monochromatic B and just crank that up and then it'll be vaguely black and white. And then if you're using a standard material, like a blend or a basic, colorize diffuse, colorize specular, that I'm not sure. But anyway, check out that link I sent. This goes into a lot of different ways to mess with your Matcaps. And there's a, like I said, Pablo Munoz Gomez thing. So while we're in here too, while you're sculpting, I tend to just grab like a Matcap green and just kind of mess around. But if I'm ever doing anything, once I get it to a certain point, I'll switch over to a basic material and then I'll grab my lights here, yoink, and then I can move my light around. There it goes. I can move my light around because that'll actually update on your model. And this is actually really good if you're matching a reference. In our Walton Goggins likeness video, we touched on that just briefly. And that's probably hasn't been overwritten in a while. Yeah, this one here, likeness, sculpting a likeness, Walton Goggins, and then Ghoul from Fallout. Both of those. See my poly paint. Oh, in gray tones. Yeah. Gotcha. So that might still work. If we are in a, let's go to a Matcap material, and let's say Matcap white. And you can see it's got some peachy undertones. And then let's go in here. Let's grab a red. I'm going to do my hotkey for fill, which is color, fill object. And then we'll just paint some garish standard brush, RGB on. So we do, oh, hold on just a second. Customize. Is that my ZBrush one? No, sorry. I think this is my Z. So when I'm doing Photoshop, I like this curve. When I'm doing ZBrush, I like that curve, I think. Again, it's been a while. So we have some, oh, that seems, let's see, clay buildup. Sorry. Yeah, I think I like a little more feather touch in Photoshop. So I think this is my Photoshop. This is my ZBrush. Okay, so here's our object. We're in a Matcap and we do have color, but we want to view it monochromatic so we can just evaluate tone or value changes as opposed to being overwhelmed by color. So let's see if this actually works. Material, monochromatic A, monochromatic B. No, it doesn't. Damn, that would have been cool. I just want to see it in black and white. That's a good one. That'd be a good Paul question. Saturation A? Saturation B? No. Yeah, these things I think are just taking the shading model and desaturating it and making it monochromatic. It's not doing anything on here. Dang. Well, I mean, like I said, if you are, but it has to be live. I was going to, just as a non-answer for your question, but just in case it's useful for anybody else. While you're here in BPR, like I said, you can go in here to render BPR filters, and then in here you can just turn these little things on. The default on this one is noise, and I want to say there's gotta be a saturation. Yes, saturation. 0, negative. That's a weird look. BPR. Huh. So you can, when you hit BPR, so you're sculpting, and you're like, okay, I want to evaluate my tones. Boop. You can hit BPR, and then that will desaturate. This little filter will desaturate on whenever you hit BPR. If you want that to go faster, if it's taking too long, just take your S-Pix, drop it down to 0. That'll render faster. And then you can also go in here to render properties, and just make sure your occlusion and the shadow settings, if they're on, are reasonable. But it goes pretty quick. Skin shade, heavy ambient occlusion, get that kind of look. Yeah, I mean, if it is truly just, also you can just pop off so if you can hold down, if you have a bunch of subtools that all have, so if we duplicate this, beep, boop, beep, and then we say, you get moved and you get moved. You can hold down shift and then turn, let's make a white. So you can hold down shift and turn your colorize on and off. Again, a bunch of non-answers for you, but alternatives, we'll call them. Cool. Andres, thank you. One advice I had to change settings on video card. Oh, okay. Yeah. That I wouldn't know, but I bet there's something in here. Show more options, like your NVIDIA control panel or something, or whatever graphics card you have. There might be a fancy, like, resolution, like a video color settings. Oh, color, brightness, contrast, saturation. With the video player settings, with NVIDIA settings. So we toggle this on, and then I bet you could desaturate maybe. I'm not going to mess with it, but feel free to give that a shot. Yes. So over here under render, there's a fade opacity. You can knock your poly paint out or lessen it. This is useful when you're sculpting through detail and stuff too. So options for you. Okay, so what were we doing? Nothing in particular. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say delete other. And I guess let's sculpt something. We'll do our startup mesh here. I'm going to drop down to a low res Dynamesh because that's how I like to roll. And go back to Z-add, clay build up. Oh, you know what? These are actually, oh no, are these my new brushes? I don't know. Okay, so we'll start by sculpting something, and then if I want to go in here and load in another object, like a body, I can go into my Tools tab, and this will load up a tool. However, if I go in here to Project, and I'm like, I wish I could grab, the male or the female ZPR, it's going to overwrite it because it's a Z project, but you can go over here to your Load Tools from Project, and you can go into your ZBrush, Z projects folder. So C program files, Maxon ZBrush 2025, Z projects. And so these are ZPR files, these are Z project files. But because we loaded it through Load Tools, it's not going to blow away what we're working on. So we can have this amazing thing we are working on, and then I can load up a Z project. So I can go ahead and just say append a male to that Z project here. Now, if this male, let me see, transparent solo. So you can see this male scale is much bigger than the what a scale I'm working on. So this is probably like millimeter scale if I had to guess for an actual human. I'm going to take this one here, and we're just going to go into deformations. Also, let me know, I was messing around with the audio. It should be okay, but let me know if it's okay. Deformation unify, and then that will knock it back to like a ZBrush primitive-ish scale. So now you can see he's just yay big. So we'll go ahead and we'll scale out just a little bit here. And now we're cooking. Now we got a cool little armor set going on. Ta-da. You know what? We'll do this. Big old X-Men. Who's that? Professor Xavier. Clay buildup. Yes. Okay, it's all coming back to me. My hotkeys are working. Everything's saved. Okay, we're doing good. Looking for so long for inactive subtool dimming function. Oh, yeah. So I want to say that's under preferences draw. You got some ZBrush interior questions. I like that. The settings I haven't played with a long time. So is it dimming? No. This is more opacity transparency. There is dimming somewhere. It's not draw. It's edit. Yes, max. Oh, I guess there's not a ton, but inactive subtool dimming, it's by default set at 0.75. So that allows you to see if polypaint is turned off, you know, you can kind of see what's active and what's not by how light it is, but you can go in here and you can crank this up to 1, and now they'll be the same, but I'll keep that at 0.75. Oh, it's all coming back to me. Sometimes I like the way the light looks on the tool, but when I rotate, shadows change positions. Can I fix light position to the mesh position? So that would be, let's see. So we have a light here and light properties and background. Background, you can set to rotate your background with object, your HDR lighting that's lighting your object. You can set that to rotate with your object. I want to say, because obviously your light's not going to do anything on a Matcap material, but again, if we go back here to a basic material and we move the light around, it should stay put. I mean, obviously the light is going to stay put, but you're saying like, as I rotate the object, also rotate the light. That I don't think you can do. There's not like a parent function where you can be, and also we're not really truly rotating. We're just moving our, well, I don't know how ZBrush technically does their thing. I think they got some tricks up their sleeve, but yeah, rotating an object, but it's camera based. So I don't know. Yeah, there's no like parenting or outliner functionality that would be like, have this light rotate as I rotate my object, as far as I know. Spacebar menu I don't think can be changed unless you can go into the hood and mess with that. I don't think it can be. Pref edit. Yeah, excellent. Let me get a drink here. It's hot. I'm in Texas. I got my lights on in here. So we have our Professor Xavier helmet here. We'll just Dynamesh this. And let's crank the resolution up just a tiny bit. So we can do some hard surface modeling. Let's go into our trim dynamic and we'll just knock this back. And then if I wanted to clean this up, one easy way to do this, like if I wanted to, you know, have an X that kind of matched this curvature, let's say I was really keen on keeping it, you could go through here. Oh, this is so weird. It's like it's super light. Hold on just a second. I got to test something. Hey, there's my... Here we go. So Control N, brush. So while I'm in here, I want to say, give me this. Yes. And then oh, okay. I honestly can't tell. God. That's what happens when you don't work enough in doing creative endeavors. Okay, so this one is a lighter touch. This one is a heavier touch. This is my ZBrush curve. Thank you. So why does it feel like when I'm masking, it's super lightweight? One way to fix that is you can hold down Control. We're in the mask pin settings. I'm going to go down here to our, get rid of preferences, render. We'll go in here to brush, tablet pressure, RGB intensity, and I'm going to just crank up this baseline. So now when I sculpt, it's going to be just a lot heavier handed. Or so you can see when I hold down Control, I'm just going to max this out. So now I'm getting a very, very heavy mask stroke whenever I hold down Control. Now, if you want to update this for all time, every time you hold down Control with mask pin, hold down Control, go in here to brush, save as, and then you'll want to go in here to ZBrushes, no, ZData, brush presets. Before you do anything, Control C, Control V, that's going to make a presets copy so that you You don't have to reinstall ZBrush if you bork your settings in here. And then this is set to mask pen. Mask pen. Come on, Mike. There it is. So I'm going to overwrite this mask pen. So now every time I start up ZBrush, my mask pen will be maxed out in the RGB. Okay, so much nicer. Don't need to get carpal tunnel trying to fill in masks here. So I'm going to hold down Control Alt and Tap to sharpen that up. And I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this off. We could extract this off, but I'm just going to hit Control W, make that its own polygroup here, delete hidden. I'm going to do a quick deformation polish by feature open circle just to knock that aliasing out. And then I'm going to say zero mesh half, tap size down to 0, and we'll just zero mesh the heck out of this. This is going to simplify the geometry in a very fast way, as opposed to me going through and using, you know, Z topology or whatever. Now, granted, this doesn't have as much control, so I'm going to go in here and weld points. And another thing we can do is we can pull out to corners with Move Accu. That's Move Brush with the Accu curve turned on. That'll allow you to pull out to like little sharp corners while you're sculpting. So now we can have a little bit more control, and now when I zero mesh this, it will look at my angles a little better. It's not great, but we can continue to smooth this out. So I'm going to go through here. I'm going to say extrude polygroup all with my Z modeler brush, pull this in, and then we'll do a flip. So that is a display properties flip. And you know what? I like to have my polygroups determine where my creasing is going to happen. So I like to go in here to group by normals. That is underneath your... It's in my custom menu, and you can see why I use custom menus a lot. And just like I do every live stream, go into my home page. Go into ZBrush, what's new, intro to ZBrush. Go in here and do a Control F for custom. First one is brushes. Second one is custom interface. This will teach you how to do all that stuff. Anyway, but now that I've done that, I've got different polygroups on both sides. So that's just quick geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld across the x-axis. So now I can go through here, do a polish by feature open circle, tap, tap, and it will. It's weird. Oh, you know what? When I mirror and weld, it's going to have the same polygroup on both sides, so that's technically not a feature, but I can go in here with my Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, hold down spacebar, crease that edge, crease that edge. Now when we go in here and we do a polish by feature, that'll hold my creases. Ugh. Let's do a polish by feature, closed circle. That'll maintain my volumes a little bit better. I'm just smoothing out that surface. And then now we can go in here to geometry, dynamic. We can hit D to turn on dynamic. And then we can say crease our PGs, our polygroups, and then say smooth subdiv of 2, or crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3. And now we can have like a nice little X kind of sitting out there that we can go through in low res model, because we can just hit Shift D and then we're back to this. Having said that, this may be too much geometry for you to really kind of mess with. So an alternative to that would be something like BTO, topology brush. We're going to start from the middle and scooch out. Multiple subdivisions, of course. Let's go back here. So if we just need to do an X with geometry, this will give us a little bit more control. We'll go right down the middle. Let's turn off polyframe. So here out, and then here out middle, and then here out, then cross over, here out. We're just drawing curves. Let's see. Something like this. Something like that. Let's hold down Alt and drag. That'll kind of clean it up. It looks like I need to redraw these. I'm just going to hold down Alt and kill those and then go here. There we go. So now when we tap off, we can say split mask points, and there's a little weird line down the center. Here's an easy way to kind of fudge this. Let's turn off X symmetry. Let's scooch it over just a bit in the left, and we'll just do a mirror and weld across the X-axis. Turn on X symmetry, uncrease all. Let's go back to our Z modeler brush, extrude, polygroup all, and we'll just hold down Shift while we extrude. That'll just push along there. Again, we'll do a quick group by normals, mirror and weld, crease, U, crease PG if we want. And again, more controllable geometry. Or you could use Z modeler extrude edge, snap a live surface, or you could use topology or Z-sphere topology, but I don't know. Quick way to turn off tablet's affection to pressure and size, like one button. Maybe. So like if you wanted it to, instead of like going into the settings and being like, oh yeah, here's one, go to your pen. Yeah, let's try this. So if you go here to mapping, there's a use Windows Ink. I want to say we're in here sculpting. Now it's not a ZBrush button, but here's a polysphere. We have X symmetry turned on. We're going to subdivide. You know, we'll just go in here to higher resolution. X symmetry. There we go. So we're sculpting, right? And we're using our standard brush, and we're able to go from really small and to really big. Let's crank up our Z intensity. You can see that a little bit better. There we go. And if you don't want that, instead of going in here to your Z intensity and cranking this up, or going in here, I think that's how you do it, tablet pressure. You can just, maybe you could do a hotkey of this. You can just turn off Windows, use Windows Ink, and that will destroy your pressure sensitivity, I think. Or not. It seems to be working just fine. Interesting. It shouldn't be. It just wanted to make a liar out of me. I feel like this should work. Turning off use Windows Ink should kill pressure sensitivity, but it might be using something weird in here. If you're ever wondering, you can go in here to preferences, tablet, and at the very bottom there's a tablet driver API, WinTab Stylus, and Windows Media WM event. You can play around with these if your pressure sensitivity is acting weird. Tablet embed, see sensitivity. Use tablet, turn that off. Let's see. Ah, there it is. Okay, so you can set a hotkey to this use tablet. So with use tablet on, it's like, oh, look at this. I have pressure sensitivity. I think. Do I? Yes. And then you can just set a hotkey to use tablet, turn that off, and then this will act like you're sculpting with a mouse. Whew. We got there. Oh yeah, sorry, BR Hacker. If I am moving too fast, call it out. Like if I'm doing something that's like, hey, that was cool, but like I kind of want to know where that is. I try to call it out, but then I get bored doing that. But again, this should be helpful for some of those basics. Most of what I'm doing is basic stuff. But I'm happy to go into the menus. Because I'm not really making, if I was actually making something, I wouldn't want to go into the menus because it's just so slow. But if I'm just kind of farting around, then no problem. Cool add-on to work with layers. Yes, if you're doing like posing multiple subtools, there is. Let me see if I have it loaded. Go CC Cozy Plus. Nope. Ref switcher. Where is it? Okay, let me download it real quick. Let me see. Oh, I don't even have it installed. Crap. Yes, there is. It's a free plugin I'll link you to it. ZBrush Pose Tools. So here, it's kind of a pose manager that will store. It'll store different layers for different subtools, and then as you move multiple subtools, you can change the pose name, you can change the layer name, you can toggle them on and off and have multiple poses. I'll show you in just a second. So ZBrush Pose Tools is here, free download. Here we go. So here's ZBrush Pose Tools. So if we do want to install this, you know what? Let me link you to that. Yeah. And again, it's just it's not a CC thing. It's just a ZBrush plugin thing. It is integrated into CC functionality, but if you don't want to use CC but you do want to use Pose Tools, feel free. So we're going to say 7-zip, or you can just do extract here, and then we're going to throw this into our ZBrush 2025 Z Startup Z Plug 64. And then if we go into this folder, you're going to see pose data and ZScript. Just like here, you have data folders and then ZScripts. So just copy this right in here or move it. And now when you start up ZBrush, that will be in your, it's not going to be in there now because there's not, I don't believe there's like a hot link refresh. Maybe there is. Preferences, config. Let me try. Let's try something. I don't think that'll work, but ZBrush pose tools. There might be a way to like, hey, go look at my folder without me restarting ZBrush. But anyway, go check that out. Fetid flesh. Oh, you're very kind. Not so legendary anymore. I'm a slow moving guy. I don't know. I need to get back into the creation stuff. Hopefully soon. I keep saying that like every month. I'm like, I'm going to get back in there, do more content. Soon. Let's see. I'm doing good, that one 3D artist. Not too shabby. Busy, unfortunately. Is there a way to use insert brushes by curves that repeat one mesh with saved UV at that mesh? So inserted meshes would have one UV. Yes. On a curve. Yes. I want to say yes. Oh boy, this would be a good Joseph Druss question. So for example, we got a ring 3D. Go in here, edit. We don't want to make polymesh 3D because we want to go down here to initialize first. Let's turn on our polyframe here. And we're going to go to initialize and we're going to drop this down. So we're going to say maybe 12 and then maybe 8. Yeah, that's way too low. Let's do 12 and 12. Okay, so now we're going to say make polymesh 3D, W, and we're going to go in here to the gear icon. If it'll let me do it. Come on. All right, I'm going to use my mouse. We're going to go in here to extender, and we're going to make ourselves a little chain. And then we're going to go in here to deformation, inflate. And for everybody who's maybe not so familiar, deformation, inflate. Control W, we'll do uncrease all. And now we have a little, you know what, let's do this. Let's do a mirror and weld in the Y direction. Oops. Floor. Oh, we're not in the Y direction. Let's do a mirror and weld in the Z direction. Geometry modify topology, mirror and weld in the Z. Kill that. That'll give us a line through there. Now, we have a chain. Now, this, I don't know that it has UVs. What we can do is we can go through here, and I'm going to make a polygroup for here. And if I want, I can go in here to UV master. A couple different ways to do UVs in ZBrush. One of those is UV master. We can say unwrap symmetry polygroups, unwrap, flatten. There's our UVs. Yay. So now we have an object with UVs. We can hit Control W, make that all one polygroup again if we want. So now if we hit W and I control drag this out, I'm testing here. So we're going to make a repeating IMM. I just want to see if that we're going to put on a curve. Unwrap. Now you can, speaking of this, if this doesn't work, there is an option. It's hacky, but you, I'm not going to say it. So UV master, work on clone. Now if I say flatten on this one, I'm going to just do a real quick check. We're going to do auto groups. Oh yeah. Okay, we're good. Okay, unflatten. So these have identical UVs. Now, B, create insert mesh, new. So now we have an IMM with UVs. What the hell is that? B, create insert mesh, new. Did I say append? Sorry about that, ZBrush. So now I've got this, and then when I go and grab that insert mesh brush we just made, it will have UVs when I drag it out if the object you drag out onto has UVs. Let me explain. If we go in here to a sphere, make polymesh 3D, and this already has UVs built into it. If we go in here to texture map, and we grab a texture. Let's not grab one with transparency. Let's not grab one with transparency. We have a texture. And now if I go in here to B, we have an IMM brush, and I drag this out, you're going to see it's going to inherit that texture map. So this has UVs, this has UVs. These UVs have this texture on it. We're good to go. Now, if we go in here and we have a brush and we say, you know what? Let's make it a stroke curve mode brush. And we go, every one of these should have UVs, the exact same UVs. Yes. Now, these chain links aren't linking up, so we're going to go in here to stroke, and we're going to say curve step, maybe like 0.75. There we go. So, to recap, we made an IMM brush. We made an IMM shape that had UVs. We control dragged out a copy of that, which kept the same UVs. So now we have overlapping UVs for this one chain on all of our chains. And we dragged it onto an object that had UVs, and then that maintained its UVs. And then we made it into a curve mode. And then as we move or add to this curve, it's going to continue to add geometry with UVs in the exact same place, as you can see. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can tap off. Let's make sure. Let's go in here to subtool, because right now it's combined with this object. We're going to go in here to split. I don't think we need to worry too much. We can say like split to unmasked points, because merge down here, UV is turned on. So if you're merging things with UVs and you want to maintain your UVs, you want to make sure that's on. I think if you just say split, yeah, you're good to go. Yeah. So now we have a chain that has UVs. Yeah, that seemed to work. Excellent. Oh yeah, yes. If you're a character artist, and you like kind of making stuff, go to my ArtStation page and go to the character creator section. There's some really fun stuff we do in there, as far as like, you know, doing is basically just hop back and forth. ZBrush to character creator, ZBrush to character creator. So many fun things you can do. Having an auto rig solution and facial animation and dynamic topology, stuff like that. Will that video be saved at the channel? Yes. So this video will be on stream. I'll link you to it. This is the Maxon ZBrush. Somewhere in here. There we are. Pavlovich workshop. There we go. Sometimes I used to put these videos on my channel. I just have been slacking, so eventually it'll end up on my channel too. Italy. Again, I don't know how much of a master I am today. So far, we've got a chain and we've got a X helmet. But you're very kind. Oh, geez. Late night. Get some sleep. Good night. Good night. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what that is. Let me see. If I hit W and say go to the gear icon, it's my tablet. It's like for some reason, it's like I have to tap it and hold and let go, and then it'll pop up. I don't know. Losing my touch. Question from Damien. Do you know why when I make proper UVs and go for the multi-map exporter workflow to get some decent details on my normal and texture, when I export to substance, there's a weird offset in the texture? The only thing I can think of is underneath, ZBrush does some really weird stuff with UVs. So whenever you're doing, if you're like, I don't know how to explain this. So what you're doing is you're going down here to the multi-map exporter, and it might have something in here. So where is that? What's wrong with my brain? Z plugin. It's in here, right? Multi-map exporter. Jeez. Okay, so you're going through here and you're baking your maps. Create all maps, export options. Is there a flip vertical in here? So you don't want to flip your channels, but I was hoping there might be like a global flip vertical. That's the only thing I can think of, is when you're exporting things, textures out of ZBrush, occasionally in your external program or in here, you'll need to like grab a texture and hit this flip V, flip vertically, and that will make it compatible with the rest of the world if ZBrush is behaving oddly. It's kind of hit or miss though, depending on export options. Actually, speaking of preferences, import exports, export texture, flip face, no texture. Yes, we want export textures. Flip X, flip Y, flip Z. You can try, I don't know. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of is, now if it's offset, if it's like, oh, it looks great, but it's just like down and to the left 7 pixels, that I wouldn't know. That's bizarre. Sorry about that. So turn off smooth normal option. The offset's still there. That's weird. Normal. Because really, I think the multi-map exporter is just using these settings here. Smooth normal, smooth UVs. UVs will be smooth, which might do something weird. I don't know. That's a weird one. Sorry about that, man. Yeah. Give that a shot. So, we got a guy in here. Let's hit the comma key. Let's go in. I'm making it up as I go along. Let's go in here to the anatomy model. And I'm going to grab the very top one here is a skeleton I like to play with. So I'm going to hold down Shift, turn off the eyeball, and now we just have the skeleton. If I want to grab some IMM stuff out of here, which sometimes I do, you can just like grab this whole face and then do Control-Shift-A, delete hidden if you want. We can also hit B, create insert mesh, new, create a skull, IMM, and if you just want the top, we can just grab all the teeth here and this cranium, and then just go to the front again, and we'll say, you know, B, create insert mesh, append. So now we got 2 versions of the skull, or like I said, you can go back to what you're working on here. Nope. If you're getting cluttered in here too, I like to go through and just do a delete all. So like all the chain stuff we were working with, if we don't need those working files, and this too, if you want to save the brush you made, your IMM brush UV thing, have it selected and then say brush save as, and throw this into your, I guess a good place for it would be like your ZBrushes folder. Like you can just make a custom folder in there, like IMM here, and then whenever you hit the comma key, go to your brushes tab, you'll have those folders sitting over here. So if we don't need this working thing anymore, we can say delete all. Delete all. That way there's less things for me to think about. Now, like I said, we can go back here to what we're working on. We can append the skull. We can go back here. We can say delete all. The other good thing about having all that stuff deleted is whenever it does an autosave, so you can see quick save. I don't know if you can see that or not, but just above here, there's a quick save. You can hit 9. Every time it does a quick save, it's saving a Z project, which is every tool you have loaded. So if you have some really heavy stuff just sitting out there not being used, it's kind of a bummer. So let's go ahead and select that skull, go to Unmesh Mesh Center. Let's turn off X symmetry temporarily. There we go. So now we can continue supplementing our mask here. Like some sort of, not Raiders of the Lost Ark. Who's the guy who's like, Kalima, and he pulled the heart out? That was Temple of Doom. We'll make some sort of Temple of Doom some or other. Let's move this back here. Yeah, now we're cooking. And we got an X through the eyeballs. Yes. We'll do like a heavy metal cover. There we go. Look at that. Yes. Do you have some big video on the channel about settings that affect brushes like all together, and maybe a playlist for Pablo probably does, or I always use him as my example. He's the brush guy. What's his thing? Hold on just a second. I want to say ZBrush Guides. I thought he had a different website, but I could be wrong. But if you go to ZBrush Guides, he's got a ton of brushes. I don't know that there's like... He does a lot of brush work. I do very little brush work. I'm pretty basic. But if anybody has a video, I'd imagine it'd be him. I could be wrong, though. But if there's a brush setting you want me to talk about, I kind of know my way around brush settings give or take. But yeah, I don't have like an exhaustive. I mean, I kind of have one or two where it's like, let me see, let's do a search for brush. Oof. Okay, maybe I. Oh, because the name of it is ZBrush. Sorry. Setting. Initialize settings. Wait. Material settings. Gizmo functionality settings. B radius modifier settings. Yeah, I mean, somewhere in here I have brush settings, but it's not exhaustive by any means. It's basic. Like, here's basically what you'll need to know when you're using brush. Like, I don't go through every single one of these. Are you using a tablet and a stylus? Yes, I'm new to ZBrush. It's crazy seeing how fast you work. Yes, and in fact, whenever I'm doing like stuff in Maya and obviously Photoshop, I'll still use my tablet, just a little bit faster and nicer and easier than using my mouse, and also it helps my wrist a little bit. But yeah, it's a plain old Wacom Intuos Pro. But all the tablets are pretty nice. In fact, I think on my channel here, we got some tablet stuff, don't we? Oh wait, no, that's not my channel. Here, tablet. Yeah, Zensi Labs. Here's a review of me doing a review on that. But yeah, I'm just using a plain old Intuos Pro Medium. That's all I ever use nowadays. Or for the past 20 years, I should say. I had a Cintiq. If I'm doing like, if I ever get into like doing really nice comic book ink work, I might get a Cintiq. But for my sloppy mess that I am as a creator, a medium tablet is just fine. So let's go, you know what we need is, let's go in here to our brush settings, insert IMM, dragon bones, M, horn. There we go. Yes, yes. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. And we'll go ahead and say split mass points. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Mohawk? What would be cool? You say mask. And whenever you're smoothing stuff, you can go in here and you can smooth, and you can raise your intensity level. Underneath brush, if you hold down, while you're holding down shift, you have access to these smooth brush modify. I mean, they're always there, but you want to make sure you're holding down shift so it's applied to your smooth brush you have selected. Weighted smooth mode, you can crank that up to 1. Crank it up. You can move it over 1, and that is going to be weighted smooth mode. That'll smooth stronger. Another thing, I don't know, I'm kind of so-so on that one. You can also, if you're in weighted smooth mode and it's too strong, then that's when you can like keep that on, but then just go in here and hold down shift and then drop your Z intensity. Another thing I like to do, especially when it has like thin walls up here that are just kind of a bummer to kind of smooth down and starts doing weird stuff, hold down shift, go up here to Sculptors Pro, and that'll just eat that geometry away. It might open some holes, that's okay, just control drag, and that'll Dynamesh and fill the holes again, and then that way, again, you can just kind of eat away nasty geometry, and then hold down shift, turn off Sculptors Pro, and you're right back where you started. Then you go in here with your trim dynamic or whatever. I still feel like this is like a feather touch. I don't know what's going on with my tablet settings. Again, new computer. I don't know. Let's go in here to clay buildup. Yes. What do we got? What do we got? You know what? These could be like straps. So one thing we can do is straps. We can go through here and we can do stuff like this, where we go in our Z modeler brush, B, Z, M, hover over face, hold down your space bar, extrude or Q mesh, whatever you want to do, polygroup all. Alternatively, you can say, let's hold down Control Shift Tap. Let's hold down Control Shift and tap this polygroup here, this blue one. Geometry modify topology, delete hidden. There we go. So now we just have this, and this is what I was talking about earlier. If you wanted to go through here and hover over an edge and then switch to extrude edge, and now you can go through here and you can just kind of extrude edges out. But if you wanted to work with thickness, you still can temporarily or dynamically. Go in here to dynamic and then just crank up this thickness, and let's turn off smooth subdiv down to 0. So basically, while we're doing this, we can have this fake thickness. We can hit Shift D to turn it off, D to turn it back on. So this is a cool way to go through and just kind of extrude stuff out. Now, if you did want to snap to an underlying surface, like if you wanted this to be like a quad draw kind of functionality, let's go ahead and turn off these horns so they're out of the way. So we have our sculpt underneath this. Let's go ahead and get rid of that skull too. So again, this is fake thickness. Shift D turns it off. With everything showing, I'm going to go in. I want to do a quick project all, but since y'all are watching, I'm going to go in here to Subtool, Project All. That's going to snap to the nearest underlying surface. And if it didn't get all of them, you can play around those settings, or you can just literally go in here and just move it closer. So we're essentially going through and just snapping these points to the surface using Project All. Project History we'll probably get into. It's my preferred method, but here we go. So we have all of these on there, right? Let's go ahead and turn on transparency with ghost off. So here's a cool thing. If we go into the comma key, go in here to brushes, go in here to Z modeler. There it is. These Z modeler brushes already have slice and topology already set up. So if you double click topology, or I think if I have that auto loaded, don't I? Yeah. So I have this in my brush presets. Let me show you where that is real quick. So if you, every time you start up ZBrush, if you go into your ZBrush, Z startup, brush presets, save brushes in here that you want to always show up when you load up ZBrush. And then when you load up ZBrush, they'll always be sitting here in your brush menu. You can assign a hotkey to them. Anyway, I'm going to grab that Z modeler topo, hover over an edge, and it's already set up to extrude and snap the surface. If you hover over a point, it's already set to move, snap the surface. If you hover over a face, it's already set to do nothing. So now we can use this as like a quad draw. So now we can go through here and we can move this stuff around, and then we can grab an edge, move the verts around, grab an edge like this. And then if you want to start collapsing, so we can go through here and like move this out, and you want to move these together, it has a radius where it'll snap together. Same thing with an edge. If I start pulling out an edge, it'll want to snap here, and then we can like snap here. So now we have basic quad draw functionality with our Z modeler brush. Let's go in here to uncrease all. That's under your, I don't know where that is, somewhere over here. Let's find it. Geometry, creasing, uncrease all. Go blind in here. So anyway. Oh yeah, we were talking about straps. So I'm going to hold down Alt and paint over these, Control Shift Tap, delete hidden, and now we can use this to go through and, like I said, kind of quad draw out some straps. Now I'm on my regular Z modeler brush. I got to go back to my topo brush. That should have the snapping turned on. There we go. Nice. So we can start making straps that way. Now, speaking of, if I'm going to do just like leather straps, I'm going to do something like this. So again, it's going to go through the eyeballs. I'm going to turn off X symmetry. I'm just going to mirror and weld this later. I'm going to go to BTO. We've already done this. And if I know where the strap's going to go, just like across, across here, it should stick to the surface. So I want one strap here, and then I want it to come this way. So I have a leather strap like so. And then this really quickly, let's say U, or now a strap. We're going to tap off. We're going to say split mask points. It's probably going to be a little thick. So again, Z modeler brush, extrude. I'm going to mark, hold down Alt, and then just kind of paint the ends of these. And you can just keep tapping Alt with your pen held down. It'll just do new polygroups. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can go in here and do a quick polish by feature closed circle. And that'll just kind of smooth my strap out. So now we have like a nice leather strap that we can go through here, and we can, you know, nail in this side or flip this side over, or, you know, put it through a, let's do this. Hold down Alt, and then we'll do a Q mesh polygroup ball. We're going to hold down Control and pull out a little secondary thing. We're going to go through here. We're going to say delete single poly U, and then we'll bridge two holes. Bing, boom. And then we'll kind of bridge those over. Now, I want this to all be one polygroup. One easy way to do that, Control Shift select lasso. Let's do an auto groups here, and then Control W, and then again, I'm just going to mark the ends of these to keep these nice and crispy. There we go. So now we have like a flipped over thing, and again, crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3. That's what we were doing earlier. And on my custom menu, let's do uncrease all, crease PG. There we go. So now we've got a nice little leather strap Now, if I'm going to move this out, instead of going like to the side here and being like, can I see? Just go to the top, and then if you hold down Alt, it'll just move along the surface normal. So that way you can kind of just be eyeballing from the side and then just go, you can kind of push this back or raise this out, and that'll allow you to kind of move away and towards the surface without being like moving your camera. You can just kind of go through here and use the surface normals to kind of push and pull in and out. So now if we bring this back, now we've got, you know, a leather strap. Now, obviously I wasn't thinking too clearly on that, but it's easy enough to fix. One way we could fix this is go in here, instead of deleting a poly, so we can use Q mesh, a single poly, and just pull through. And if I do Shift D, you'll see that that's just, it kind of goes through and it kind of just eats that geometry. So now we're kind of back where we started. Again, we'll do a crease PG, hit D for dynamic, and now we've got that strap. And like I said, if it's supposed to go over the skull, which, oops, I could redraw it, or like I said, I could just go through here, hold down Alt, and just kind of push along that surface normal. Now a strap is going to kind of hit a bump and then go straight back, right? It's not going to be like a wet t-shirt or anything. So we'll go ahead and leave that straight, and then it's going to hit this bump here. It's going to kind of come out, and then, I don't know, we'll tuck that back in there. A little pirate skull thing. What storytelling could we do here? What compelling visual design, dynamic shape relationships? I don't know. Let's see. Any other questions? Gizmo, is there a way to... Okay. Is there a way to come back to saved Gizmo position? Useful would be when we're working with local symmetry. Saved Gizmo position. So if I understand correctly, we have a Gizmo position like this, and then we do have, if you do LSIM with dynamic, right now with local symmetry with dynamic means this Gizmo is controlling, for people that don't know, this symmetry is controlling this Gizmo is controlling our symmetry. So if I go hit Q to go back into brush mode, and then we're in our standard brush, and I turn on X to go across X symmetry, it's using my Gizmo to allow me to sculpt. You can see my dots here are sculpting across X symmetry like this. As far as I know, you might be able to store Gizmo position. My non-answer would be to have an associated piece of geometry that you could center. What I'm saying is, if I needed to have a very specific Gizmo point and I did not want to lose it, what I would probably do, hacky but effective possibly, is just have, let's do an insert cube. You know what? And for this cube, I'm going to go down here. So let's talk about this. So right now, we inserted a cube, and so that means it's not going to have an initialized state that you would normally see with a cube. So if we go in here to a normal old cube, like here's a primitive cube, and if you go down here to initialize, you'll see a bunch of, you know, initialized settings you can play with. However, that's because it hasn't been made into a Polymesh 3D. As soon as you hit that button, that locks in those polygons so you can sculpt on it, but now your initialize changes to this. I like this Q cube, nice and simple. And that's basically what I was trying to get at, was if you append a primitive to a stack of Polymesh 3D objects, it's going to automatically be a Polymesh 3D object. You're not going to be able to initialize it, but you can go in here and hit Q cube, and there we go. We got a Q cube. So now if I always want to have access to an exact orientation, I would just have, and it doesn't have to be part of the subtool necessarily. It's just like, just have a cube in the orientation that you want, and then I can go through here and hit W, hold down Alt, and then just kind of drag, snap. In fact, can I? There we go. Hold down Alt, and if I want it to be in the middle, just go to Unmatched Mesh Center. So now I can set this, and if I'm like, oh, it's the wrong axis, now you can just hold down Shift, hold down Alt, and then hold down Shift, and just rotate this 90 degrees. So you can set this to be whatever orientation that you want. There is a way to have a subtool inherit Gizmo orientation from another subtool, is there? Without merging. Oh, that's a weird one. These types of questions hurt my brain. it's stuff I don't do very often, so I'm like, I think I vaguely remember something about being able to do this, but it's not like in my wheelhouse really. But you know what, just to make it easy, let's go ahead and just merge these down. It could be temporarily because you can always split them back apart. So you can see we have this gizmo orientation here. So now if I grab this piece, Control Shift A, and say split hidden, now this has that exact gizmo orientation that was dictated by that cube, that if I ever mess this up and it's like, oh, my gizmo's weird, I can always go back to my cube, and it still has the gizmo orientation information. So I just merge it back down, split it back out, and it'll inherit that gizmo. Also, even if this one gets messed up, it's just a simple cube. So you can still go through here and reset it to whatever axis you want, and then you're good to go. Again, so many non-answers. Somebody might have a better answer. If you have a better answer, shout it out in the chat. Dope boy. Yo. Is there a way to keep polygroups after decimating with Decimation Master? Polygroups, can you? If there's not, there might be a workaround. Let's talk about that. So if we go back to what we're working on here. Let's turn everything else back on. So we have our little pirate skull guy. Let's go ahead and tap Alt. There we go. Let's do this. I'm going to hit Control D a couple times. I'm going to hit Control D. You know what? And then we're actually going to do this. Delete lower, geometry modified, delete mirrored well. So we have this, right? And I'm going to make different polygroups for all these. So Control W, Alt tap, Control W, Alt tap, Control W. And I'm going to do a merge visible. That's going to throw out a merged version of this. And now what I'm going to do, instead of dynameshing this, I'm going to hit W, and I'm going to go into, see how fast that did it? I'm getting pretty good. And I'm going to go in here and say remesh by union. This is going to run a boolean union on here, so I would strongly suggest doing this if you're doing this to kind of clean out your model for 3D printing, or you want something to, you know, ZBrush and project back to. Instead of dynameshing, which can cause all sorts of weirdo problems, do a remesh by union. Now, there could still be weird problems in here. One of those might be if I hold down Control Shift and grab a little piece of an object and then do Control Shift A, that's going to grab all the contiguous geometry. If I Control Shift drag, it's going to invert it, and you're not going to see anything. Oh, I guess you can. You see these like little things? You might have little floating pieces of geometry. So to clean those out easily, Control Shift drag over a little piece, Control Shift A, and then do a geometry modified topology delete hidden. Also, that's good to keep in mind if you're ZBrushing and constantly getting errors, grab a little piece of your mesh you're trying to ZBrush, Control Shift A, delete hidden. If it deletes something and doesn't throw that message where it's like, hey, you can't delete hidden, everything's already deleted. If you don't see that, that means there was something floating somewhere that was causing ZBrush to break. Let's do another quick mirror and weld. Now, Decimation Master. If we go in here to Decimation Master, we say freeze borders, keep borders unchanged. I want to say that's polygroup borders, but it's probably not going to maintain your polygroups. Plus, when you're decimating, you don't want to necessarily like keep that really high-res geometry on your border. So I'm going to say that's no-go. Keep UVs, I'm not worried about that. Poly paint. Yeah, you're right. So if we do, let's just try it. We're going to pre-process current, and we're going to say decimate this down to 50K. Boom. Boo. But see how clean it is? Like if I had Dynamesh this would be garbage. But since I live booleaned it, oh, it's so good. Keep that in your back pocket. That's a good one. Remesh by union, y'all. However, let's do this. Let's try this. Let's try it. Let's go in here to polypaint. Again, another hacky non-answer, but workaround. Polypaint from polygroups. Not great. It's pretty low res. And polypaint is literally vertex color, so there is going to be bleed between low res objects. Screw it. Let's see how it works. So we're going to go through here. We're going to say use and keep polypaint. I don't know, polypaint weight 100. Let's see. Decimate, pre-process current. Decimate current. I mean, that's a cool look. I kind of love it, especially those teeth. Okay, let's try, I don't know, 20. I don't know if you technically need to pre-process after changing that value, but just in case. Using Cube Polypaint doesn't make current. Okay, that worked a little bit better. We still have our Polypaint. So if you wanted to, you could try going here to Polygroups from Polypaint. And now let's turn off our... yeah, it's not great. I mean, another thing you could do... yeah, Decimation isn't mirrored. I wish it was, though. That'd be cool. You know what? I'm going to mirror and weld this, and then I'm going to go through here and do weld points with a distance set up just a tiny bit. Oof, that's too much. Screw it. So while we're going through here, if you wanted to clean up these polygroups, you can see like that Polypaint bleed didn't really do us any favors. You can hover over. Again, I'm not saying this is a great workflow, but just for anybody watching, you can hold down Alt with ZBrush, so B, Z, M. Hold down Alt, and while you're painting, tap Shift. That'll inherit that Polypaint. Don't lift your pen up, and then you can just go through here and just start painting over these polygroups. So you can use this as an easy way to kind of go through and paint. Now, if you mess up, you got to go back through here, tap Shift. It goes pretty quick. You know, you just basically, let's make our brush size a little smaller here. Ugh, stop. There we go. Another thing too is because these are pretty drastic sharp angles, you can give, you know, group by normals a shot, and it can go through, and you see it did a pretty good job. So if you're doing hard surface stuff and you know, you're getting these types of edges, you can probably give just, although these little edges here aren't going to be great. Boy, I wish I had a better answer for you. Can you transfer a polygroup? No, that's polygroup data. You could probably get fancy in Houdini if you really wanted to. You could transfer polygroup data after decimation, and it would just be like it project that data and recreate your polygroups. I mean, it's not gonna be perfect. Yeah, I guess not. I can't. Cool. Good evening. Oh, what time is it? Okay, it's 5:30. Okay. So 6:30, I guess. I just want to make sure I'm not stepping on anybody's toes because this is not my normal streaming time. Cool. Excellent. Can I use deformer with... can I use deformers with a smaller step? Deformers with a smaller step. Sorry, I missed that one. So you're talking about like these deformers in here? Probably, yeah, I think you can. Some of these, if you tap on, sometimes in ZBrush, if you tap on a slider, you'll see a little translucent slider above it. That'll give you more fidelity in your sliding. But things like inflate, I want to say if you wanted to do increments, instead of using the slider, just type in like 0.1 and it will literally allow you to do like a 0.1 inflate. You can't really drag it to like 0.1 or anything, I don't think. Control Alt, yeah, but you can type in a small value and I think it will respect it, I think. Cool. Let's see. Yes, Christmas came early in mid-June. I'm hoping to do more content, so bear with me. I'll be back. I got cool stuff we need to make. I've just been slacking, at least on my content. How do you rotate and snap Gizmo? So when you're in... So there are a couple different... This is actually cool, I think. So we have a cube, right? Let's make it so we can see a little bit better. Get a drink so I'm not smacking my lips. Okay, so we have a Gizmo, right? We hit W. If you Alt tap on an object, it's going to inherit the surface normal. Now, if you Alt, for example, you Alt tap on this middle dot and then you just keep dragging over here, it'll snap to the next vert. Boop, boop. So that's useful. So if you want to snap it straight, you can do that. Now, if that's tricky to do for some reason, another way you can do that, so let's say this is, hold down Alt. So Alt basically just unlocks the this. If you don't hold down Alt, it'll just rotate, right? So Alt allows you to move this thing around. Now, if you hit this up here, Gizmo 3D, shortcut for that is Y. Hit Y on your keyboard, that'll turn it into a transposed line, and you're going to see the transposed line maintains the same. It's linked to the Gizmo, I believe, and you can do the exact. And it's a little bit easier with the transposed line to like tap and drag on this line, and you can see as I move it around, it's snapping to the surface, and then it'll snap here, boop, it'll snap here. So this works a little bit better, right? So if I hit Y, you'll see my Gizmo's been updated. So you can kind of hop back and forth between transpose and Gizmo if it's a little bit easier to make snapping a little bit easier. So for example, if I wanted to snap, on this side here, I can hit Y, and then I can just drag from this here to this here, and then I can hit Y, and it'll put it here. Now, if I want it to be in the middle, I can say move to unmatched mesh center, but it's going to go to the middle of my object. If I wanted to, I could tap here first just to kind of set it on that surface, and then I can go into Y, and then I can say, let's snap here to here, and then hit Y. There we go. So now my Gizmo's been updated, the orientation. And then once it's oriented straight, and you want to be like, oh, I wish Z was forward, that's where it's not an issue. You can just hold down Shift, hold down Y, U. Okay. Hold down Alt, and then as you're rotating this, hold down Shift, and now you can like snap it. So if I want it to be like, okay, hold down Alt and then Shift, and I want it to be Z forward, I can just do 90 degrees in that direction. So now we're good to go. Cool. Polygroup by edges would work, at least here. Maybe. Yeah, give that a shot. There are some. What the bad thing is when you're using a custom menu, I usually like whatever I have in here is pretty much all I use, so I tend to forget that there's like a whole bunch of options in here, and if I haven't used them or seen them in years, I will forget they exist. So check out those settings and see if there's something in there that'd be obvious and awesome to use post decimation. UV by polygroups. Oh yeah, decimate and keep UVs polygroup by UV, but it takes too long. That's an awesome workaround though. Thanks for shouting that out. So basically, Decimation Master keep UVs, use that. So before you decimate, UV it, you have UVs, keep your UVs, and then you can do, like we were talking about, you can do polygroup by auto groups with UV. So if your object has UVs, you can use that. Very handy. That's a good workaround. Like you said, slow, but it works. My normal streaming times, first Tuesday of the month, 6 a.m. my time, so 4 a.m. Pacific Standard. This is just, I couldn't do it this first Tuesday, and I just got a new computer, so I set it up, and I figured I'd just do a live stream real quick. Make sure everything's working. Is everything working? You guys can hear me all right? My camera's up. I got a camera again. Cool. Do I need to move my face? Whoops. Is that better? I guess that's fine. Whatever. Doesn't matter. My face isn't important. Oh yeah. Layer, like so, like when you're doing a deformation, actually that can come in handy if you're doing very, very small sizing. Doing it on a layer, essentially. So we have this here, right? And I want to scale this up. One thing you can do is you can go in here to, where's my layer menu? Subtool, layers. So I have an object here. I want to make a new layer, and it's recording. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this up, right? Or I can even scale it this way. Non-uniform scale. And then I want to be very touchy with my scale. We'll turn off record. You can go through here and use your layer to kind of go through, and you can be zoomed in too. So you can kind of be zoomed way in. If you needed to hit a certain spot, you can go in here and you can even go down here and over crank the layer. I want to say, okay, oh, perfect. Is it M? No. How do you magnify? I don't know. Lean into your monitor real quick. You're going to see there's a bright slider and then there's a translucent slider. So the bright slider is going to do big increments. Translucent slider, if I tap, it's going to do small increments. So you can actually use this to scale things very, very precisely while you're zoomed in on it. As an alternative to doing something like this, where you're like, you need to see the gizmo, or hitting Y, and you need to, you know, you can move this up here, and then you can hit E to go into scale mode. Oh, W actually in this case. Hold down Shift. So you can be zoomed in. Hold down Shift. So you can use this to do little micro movements. Or like I said, you can just go in here to your layer, tap, and then you can do little micro movements on your layer. And then once you're good, you can go in here and say Bake All, and you're good to go. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Trim Dynamic. Colin, hello. I was wondering if you know what the dynamic toggle on the perspective button does. I want to say that's LSIM. I don't. Oh, there it is. Perspective dynamic. Perspective button. Distortion. I wanted to say maybe that might be legacy. I don't know. That's another good Paul question. Draw. So here's dynamic perspective, and then this is the important one, the universal perspective camera. This is if you wanted to be compatible with like Max, Maya, Moto, Blender, Cinema 4D. You're going to want that on, and this should be compatible with those. This is like old school ZBrush perspective that turns it on and then off, and then I want to say like dynamic. You know what it was? Or what it might have been? Here's our object, right? Let's try this. I think I remember. So we have a skull, and we have perspective on, right? Now I'm at a 3/4 view, but you're going to see as I move it. Now if I go straight, I'm on a straight on view. You're going to see as I move it to the left and right of my screen, I'm seeing more of the temporal bone on this side, and then if I go over here, I see more of the temporal bone. So, but if I'm right in the middle, I see equal amounts, right? So, and again, I'm not like rotating the object and moving it. I'm literally panning the object. I want to say if I turn dynamic off. No. What is that? I thought there was a setting. Oh, it was align to object. Okay, we got to turn this off. Okay, so, okay, turn on align to object. So turn off universal camera if this is useful to you for some reason. So now if I can have perspective on. Whoa. It's doing crazy stuff. Okay, so I can have perspective on. And if I have align to object off, again, as I go to the left and the right of the object, I'll see more or less of the temporal bone. However, if I have align to object on, it'll still be in boy, it's doing something weird. It'll still be in perspective technically, but as I go to the left and the right, you're going to see it's not showing me more or less of the bone. That's what I was thinking of. But this is all fake. This is all like ZBrush, and I don't know why it's doing like crazy stuff. Long answer short, I have no clue what that does. I wish I did. Sorry about that. Generally speaking, though, I'll just have both those on, my universal camera, and then actually while I'm sculpting and stuff, I usually have perspective turned off. Sorry, purist artists. That's just how I roll. Let's see. Dynamic perspective turns off the geometry when rotating the scene. Is that true? Let's see. Perspective. So I'm rotating. I want to say like solo with dynamic turns on. Oh, wait. Yeah, so solo, it will solo with this dynamic on. That will hide objects while you're turning. So if you have really heavy scenes, that will just rotate your one object. But dynamic, I don't know. Yeah, so, yeah, sorry about that. If you find out, email me. It might be one of those things I vaguely remember. I've forgotten more ZBrush at this point than I think I actually know. Okay, so we have a strap here. It needs to be functional, right? We can't just sit here having a strap that doesn't do anything. So we need to plug it in. So it's going to go underneath this. It can probably pop out the bottom here, right? Yeah. And then where's it going to go? Oh, here's the other thing too. When you're doing straps and you're like, oh, I can't keep everything even and things are getting weird, don't worry about it. You can always fix it. I'll show you how in a second. So I'm going to take this here and we're going to say, let's just Q mesh a single poly. Actually, this is even funner. Let's hit W, control tap, W, turn off, make it so we have our gizmo here. If you control tap a polygroup, it'll control tap. It should unmask just that single polygroup. Let's see if we do this. I think it needs a vert though. I'm going to go through here. We'll do insert single edge loop here, insert single edge loop here. So now if I control tap here, there we go. Sorry, a little workaround. Now we can hold down control and drag out an edge loop. And this is just an easy way to kind of go through and kind of just more stuff for making straps. So we can just go through here and control drag out as we move back. So we've got a strap that's going through, and just like I said, if your strap is kind of getting nasty and you want to clean it up, remember, feel free to go through here and be like, hey, let's go ahead and add a bevel through here. That's going to round this out a little bit, get just a little bit more resolution. Let's go ahead and do Control Shift Tap. Let's go out of select, say delete hidden. I'm going to do a quick group by normals. Just grab the blue and pink here. Delete hidden, Control W. We'll do uncrease all. Let's go ahead and get rid of this one. So we're back to just a regular old thing. So if you are getting like weird thicknesses, remember you just have one side of a strap. So at any point, just knock it back down to one side of a strap, go through here and continue updating. If you want that fake strap thickness, that's when you go back in here to geometry, dynamic, just hit D to turn that on. Let's turn off smooth, let's turn up thickness. And now you've got, and again, if you want that thickness to only go back, like you're gonna end up eventually extruding it backwards, go through here and change your offset to -100, and that'll just push that offset backwards. Now you got a nice strap that's always going to have the exact right thickness no matter what you do to your geometry. And then you can just say dynamic apply when you're ready to have that be real. Now, having said that, there may be instances where it's like, well, I want my strap to be smoothed out, but if I go through here and because this thickness isn't real, if I was to go through here and do like a dynamic polish by feature, it's going to round out that back. So this is a two-part process. What I would do to kind of clean up a strap would be say, okay, if my general strap is working pretty good and I just want to do a nice cleanup polish pass on it, that's when I say dynamic apply. And then to keep those edges, again, I'm going to hold down Alt and paint these to be different polygroups here. And then we'll do a crease PG. And then now when I do you don't actually have to do a crease PG. When you do a polish by feature, a polygroup border is automatically treated as a crease. But now you can go through here and just tap that. The reason I do a closed circle is that maintains its volumes a little bit better. If you do open circle, it's going to just polish the hell out of it, which is sometimes useful, but not in this case. So that'll kind of smooth out your strap a little bit. Now it is going to kind of do some weird stuff, but that's when you just go through here, you just tap it a few times and then hop back in here real quick with your move brush, holding down Alt, and then just pull that back out. So there you go. And now you got a nice strap through a skull. And then B, I, brush, insert clothing. M, we'll grab a snap assembly and we'll just kind of like. Now, if we want this to be the same size, because I just kind of eyeballed that one. If we want to be more precise, so if we're going to put a one here and one back here, that's when you make your brush size the size that you want and then hold down Control and drag. Now it's going to that outer ring. And you also want to make sure dynamic is on. So we want it to be about yay big. Just hold down Control and snap. And if it's not going in far enough, go in here to your brush menu, depth. Let's embed this, say 0. There you go. So again, hold down Control and that'll snap it to your brush size. If you want to, like, write this down, 22.48959. Whew, got some NASA tolerances on that. So now if we go through here, we can do that, and then I'm just going to grab a little piece of this, Control-Shift-A, split hidden, and now we've got our little snap assembly knobs, same size on both sides. Yeah. Let's see if Fedit has it. dynamic recreates perspectives based on how big your object appears. The closer, more perspective distortion, the further away, flatter. Yeah, maybe. So I would think it would like pop. Like if I turn this on and off, I would expect it to like do something. So I could be like, oh, it's simply blank. I can watch it do something. Wait, is it? Okay, hold on. Dynamic off. Okay, dynamic on. Dynamic on. So toggling it, it seems like there's a visual draw bug that's not toggling it. But if you tap in your document, it'll update it. So it is doing something. So like Fed had said, recreates perspective based on how big your object appears. The closer, the more perspective distortion, the further away, the flatter. So we're really close. And then with dynamic off, yes. Okay, I think you got it. So with dynamic off, and we're really, well, first things first, this has to be off, I think. It looks like when a real camera, what is this? Universal perspective camera's on, dynamic don't do nothing. Oh, am I lying? Damn it. Stop. No. It looks like with this on, dynamic doesn't do anything. But if this is off and you're using ZBrush's perspective and you say dynamic off, like Fetid was saying, it reduces distortion. So dynamic off, oh boy. So with dynamic off, it is really distorted when you're really close. It's like a, I don't know what that is, beyond fisheye lens. That's pretty cool. But with dynamic on, it reduces that effect. Huh. Everybody, round of applause for Fetid Flesh with a PH. Is there a way to apply all dynamic to all subtools? Yes. Okay, so yes, with a caveat. So now if we have dynamic turned on, whoa. So if we've already said dynamic apply and we applied our thickness and then you hit D again and it just adds more thickness, go in here, turn off thickness, we'll turn smooth subdiv up to 2, and that's when we'll get in here to like, you know, crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3, I think. What's going on here? Let me turn this back on. D for dynamic, smooth subdiv of 3, crease level of 2, delete hidden. Okay, so we have dynamic turned on for this, right? And let's say, for this one, let's go here. We'll say delete higher. We'll hit D. So we have dynamic on for this one. We have dynamic on for this one. Instead of going through here and saying dynamic apply and then using your down arrow key to select through your subtools, or going up here and selecting your subtools, there is a Z plugin. I wonder if I have it installed. Looks like I don't. Shoot. We need to grab that one because it's an awesome one. Hold on. ZBrush plugins. I'm going to link y'all to a link. There's a link. Scroll down. ZBrush Compositor is cool. Go ahead and download that one. Quick Scaler, I don't use that much. Layer Depth, I don't use that much. Nanotile's fun. Startup utility, panel loop presets, I never use, but it's fun. Clean tool utility, this is a good one. Download it. ZRepeat, it's a good one. IMM extractor is a good one. They're all good ones. Boolean utility is a good one. Dynamesh utility is a good one. They're all good. Just depends on what you use. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say go to my downloads. So we got a bunch of downloads, and I need to extract them all. So I'm going to take all of these, 7-zip, extract. And then we're going to go to C, if you're on a Mac, I don't know what it is, something like C program files, Maxon ZBrush 2025, Z startup, Z plug 64. Now I have it on everything. I'm dumped on my desktop here. So to make this a little bit easier, desktop So now I've got my folders over here. So I'm just going to click through these. And there's again, here's our Z data and Z script. And this is our Z plug 64. So I'm just going to copy or move this in here. We're going to grab these, move them in here. Sure. Grab these. Live boolean. Here. Sorry. Not super fun to watch, but not everything is fun. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes life is boring. Remember being a kid, having to go house shopping with your parents? Ugh. Pose tools data, ZBrush pose tools. Oh. That's weird. I'm going to skip that one. I think I already moved that out, but anyway. There we go. Z repeat it. So we've moved all of our Z plugins in there. So let's do this. Let's go into ZBrush. Let's do a quick save. Just hit 9 on your keyboard. Let's close out of ZBrush. Let's see how fast my brand new awesome computer can launch ZBrush. And then we'll talk about dynamic all. So now we've downloaded 2. So let's hit the comma key. Go in here to quick save. There we go. So Z plugin. There's 2 ways now we can apply dynamic all. So in here, oh, you know what? Let's try 3 ways. One way doesn't necessarily require a plugin. So here we have dynamic turned on. Here we have dynamic turned on. If we go over here to geometry, trying to remember where it is. Dynamic apply. There is an apply last action to all subtools. So if we click that, say OK. Let's look at this one. Ah, I did it. So that's one way to do it. You can apply dynamic to one, go and hit that apply last action to all subtools, and it will apply dynamic if dynamic is turned on. If it's not, then it's not going to do anything. That is one way to do it. Another way, delete higher, D, delete higher, D. The way I usually do it is I'll go in here to Z plugin, clean tool utility, and there is a dynamic subdiv to sdiv all. So that'll go through every single subtool and apply that for you. Another way is Z repeat it. You can use this as like a Photoshop action script kind of thing where you can say, record what I'm doing, go in here and hit dynamic subdiv all, stop recording, save it, and then you can do selected visible all. Yeah, let's see. Oh, am I? I shouldn't be. I should be streaming at 1920 by 1080. No, I think I got everything set up. Hold on. Settings, stream, output. I shouldn't be rescaling. 19. Oh, output scaled resolution. Oh. Yeah, I am. Damn, sorry about that. All right. Well, after this live stream, I'll fix it. Thank you for calling that out. Oh, I knew there's always something trying to ruin my life. Okay. Yeah, I'm at 720p for those ones. Luckily, I'm not doing a whole lot of high fidelity stuff, but my menus might be a little harder to read. Sorry about that. Cool. Oh, no problemo. Let's see here. And also, I may have... If I missed your question, let me know, Jose. I don't see your name up here. I'm not, if I missed anybody's question, please shout it back out. I'm not trying to ignore anybody. Cool. Alrighty. So we got our weirdo thing here. Gosh, what else we want to do? One thing we can do. Now, if I do a mirror and weld on this one, it'll do something weird. But if I want to have 2 crisscrossing straps, that's when I need to go in here to duplicate. And then do a deformation mirror across the x-axis, and then go in here with my move brush, hold down Alt, kind of push that above. There we go. So now we've got two opposing straps here. Let's hold down Shift and turn off Polypaint so we can know what we're working on. And there we go. Same thing if I wanted to use the same old buttons over here. These ones would be safe. Oh. This I couldn't mirror and weld actually. But one thing we can, I mean I could, but it's going to be difficult. It's not going to do what I want. So I'm going to say duplicate this off. I'm going to say mirror this one. So there they're opposing, and then I'm going to merge this down. I have a hotkey set for Control E to subtool merge down. And again, if you are merging and you want to maintain your UVs, make sure that button's on. So now we've got buttons, we have X symmetry turned on, we have crisscrossing straps, and we've got a, this isn't really working for me. Not that any of this is really blowing my hair back, but what is this lump? So let's play around with this lump a little bit. So whenever you have two objects next to each other, in real life, they're usually not able to crash into each other. So you need to have some sort of relationship between these. So you need some indication that like this object knows that these horns exist. And that just makes things feel better, more realistic, a little better storytelling, right? So we'll put a little relationship indication in there. I don't know what that is, but we'll call it a day for now. And then these here, here's something interesting. Technically, these two straps are not mirrored, but they're close enough to where I could be like, you know what, I'm just going to merge these down, and if I'm ever working in the middle, I'll turn symmetry off, but while I'm working on the edges over here, I'll turn symmetry on, and that way I can use symmetry to kind of work a little bit faster, and then I can just split these things off later, or like I said, just turn off X symmetry and isolate them, or whatever. Let's see, mirror and weld. Another thing too, just to be careful of, whenever you're doing mirror and weld, make sure you have LSym turned off. If you are mirroring down the world axis, because that can, your bounding box can sometimes throw your symmetry off if your LSym is turned on. That is so weird. I guess these did get a little out of whack. Oh, I'll just turn this off. Yeah, I'll turn it back on. Okay, so what else? Cool. Yeah, I need to change mine to 1080. Sorry about that. Oh, I'm so mad at myself. Do you take any industry questions or ZBrush related only? I can give you my opinion, but that's all they are for my legal disclaimer. These are my opinions, not the opinions of Pixelogic, or I guess it's Maxon and their subsidiaries and shareholders. I can give you my 2 cents. But the other thing too to be careful of when you're listening to people's 2 cents is they don't know anything. I certainly don't. So if it's going to be like, you know, how does a student nowadays do blank, or how does this, you know, and then it's like, well, I don't really know. I kind of like my parents when I was going and getting a job in the 90s, and you know, my parents' work knowledge was from the 70s. It's not relevant. It's really, truly not. So any insight I might have may or may not be actually relevant to anything that's actually going on. I only know what I know, and what I know is not much. What I don't know could fill a warehouse, I think is how it goes. But yeah, I can answer some. Some brushes work dependent on camera position to object. Can I change it so that they work only relative to surface? Some of them, like this one. So if you go in here to your snake hook brushes, for example. So here's Snake Sphere. And these are really cool when you're using Sculptors Pro. So while you're using the Snake Sphere, you're going to see as I wiggle it, it's coming right at me. But if I go in here to our modifiers, brush modifier set to 100. If I set that to 0 and I wiggle it, you're going to see it doesn't go anywhere. If I set it to, let's say 50, I'm trying to remember if this is actually the case. It comes at me. Set it to 100. It comes right at me. So I think the lower this is, the more, what is it? So if I pull off, is it modifier? Yeah, I think it is. I want to say, I want to say the modifier actually does take more into account the surface normal or more into account camera. This is one example. Now, having said that, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it seems like it's true. Go back, you know, there's a guy with videos. He's pretty knowledgeable at ZBrush. I am not, but this guy here, he knows ZBrush because he recorded this stuff and he remembers things. I do not. Snake hook. New snake hook functionality. This will cover all the cool stuff I was just talking about that may or may not have been true. However, having said that, there is another thing in here called picker. So if we go in here, I don't know if this is for brushes or if this is more for like curve or IMM. But basically, if we go in here to BC curve tube, and this is one thing that is going to be interesting to some people, I think. You want to use curve tube, and normally you would think that, oh, it's going to snap to my surface, and it doesn't. What a bummer. So in your picker, you have orientation, depth here. We're going to go in here, we're going to say continuous orientation, continuous Z. So by changing those, it's going to continuously update your curve, I think, on the orientation and depth of your object. So now this brush will actually snap to your surface. Much more useful. So there's that. There's also this. So if we go in here to B, let's do an arrow. Let's hop out of here. Let's go grab a arrow 3D, F to frame. And if I just look at this like so, I could say B, create insert mesh, new. And then if I go back to what we were working on, and I use this, you're going to see when I drag it out, it's acting a little bit weird. Oh. Let's turn off accessory. Huh. It is behaving a little bit jittery, but it seems to be behaving normally-ish. So it's acting like I would expect, right? It's coming right at me. However, if I go over here to this orientation and I switch it from continuous to this arrow, if I move the arrow straight at me, it'll behave as normal. But if I go in here and I move this arrow up, it's going to, the orientation of the mesh, which was pointed right at me when I captured it, that will actually control how it's dragging out. Now, it's not your brush, but it is your IMM. So you can actually use this to kind of go through and, you know, instead of recapturing your brush at certain angles, you can just go through here and use this. Another thing I want to say, God, what menu is it? Is it preview? Draw? Yeah. I want to say there's something weird you can do in the draw menu with this. I don't remember exactly what it is, but something. Current tool preview. Drag within the window, see a different orientation. Or maybe not. I don't know. Now, as far as, okay, what was the question? Works depending on camera position to object. Now, if it's like a sculpting brush, it's probably going to be like samples. Or if you find a brush that you like the settings for, I would say have your samples open, have your depth open, and have your modifiers open, and then just toggle back and forth between them. Granted, there are some different types of brushes like clay versus standard versus chisel. I think they all have different parent brushes. If you hover over these, you see base type is clay, base type is nudge, base type is single layer. So they all have a different base type. So those two types probably have to be somewhat compatible to get a similar functionality. But if you go in here to like displace and you like those settings, and then you have, you know, another brush you want to compare between them, let's grab our, oof, can I, okay, good. So you can just kind of toggle back and forth between these and kind of look at their settings and see what changes. Like, oh, position change, what is that? Align, blah, blah, blah. And then, so if you can, long story short, if you can find a brush with settings that you like and it does the things you like, have it open, look at all these settings, and see what switches between them. Sometimes some of the settings will be over here underneath stroke modifiers and lazy mouse modifiers that add a little extra functionality on top of brushes, but I don't know. Can you paint with geometry? Meaning if I had a sphere and I wanted to paint on the sphere with cubes and have those cubes adhere to the shape of the sphere, I think sugar cookie. Yes. So let's make a sugar cookie. Flatten. And, well, there we go. Let's turn on make polymesh 3D. And where are we oriented? Okay, we're in the Y orientation. So I'm going to go in here to stroke. No, transform. I'm going to tap X symmetry, but we're going to switch it to Y symmetry with a radial count cranked up. We're going to go in here to inflate, and we're going to kind of plump out those edges there. There we go. Nice sugar cookie. Now, I want to spray some spheres on here. Now, before I do that, I don't want to, if I'm going to be spraying geometry, actually, there's a couple different ways we can do this. So one easy way is to say, I'm going to duplicate this off, Control-Shift, grab the top here, Geometry Modify Topology, delete Hidden, and let's make a new IMM. Because if we're going to be populating tens of thousands of something, I don't want it to be like a 9 million polygon sphere. I want it to be relatively lightweight. So we're going to drag out a sphere, go in here to edit mode. We're going to go down here to initialize, and we're going to say H divides of 8 and 8. That's pretty low res, right? So I think it's safe. Make polymesh 3D. B, create insert mesh, new. And going back to our sugar cookie here, if you're industrious, you can go through here and just hold down Control, turn off X symmetry, and you can just be like snap, snap, snap. Obviously, you want to go in here and you want to change your depth. So it's embedded. So it's at 100 now. Let's say 0. So now when you drag this out, there we go. So we got a sprinkle on there. Now, I duplicated this off for a reason, because I can go through here and I can say, turn on Nanomesh. Problem. Not a problem. I have this mesh here. I'm going to go in here to brush, create Nanomesh brush. Say okay. So now that will give us a Z modeler brush with that sphere as its nanomesh insert. And you could do that if you had a multi-mesh insert brush. You could do the same thing. It'll, instead of having 1, it'll have like 8 or whatever. Hover over face. It's already set up for insert nanomesh on a single poly. Let's do polygroup all. And then as we drag this out, every single polygon is going to get a, what was it? Sugar thing, globule. Although it should probably be a cube. You know what? We can fix it. Now, we want to scatter it. So we're going to go down here to random distribution. We're just going to scatter. So now, and these are just instances. So we can say, you know, if we move this layer around, they're just going to follow. And we can also go in here and say show placement, turn that off. So now we're scattering these. And it's like, I didn't want round globules. I wanted cubes. No problem. Just go in here to edit mesh and hit W. You can go in here and you can actually just grab like a polycube. Although now it's going to be super tiny, but we'll scale it up. And now if we go out of edit mesh, they've all been updated to cubes. And at this point, you can go through here and you can like change the scale. You can have variants. So you can go through here like X, Y, and Z rotation with variants over here. Even probably don't want to do offsets, but now we're getting kind of a sprinkly look, right? Now, that wasn't scattering geometry. That was nanomesh, but you can scatter geometry. So we'll go back to here and let's grab, how do I do this? Standard brush. I know you can do it. So go here to spray. It's not alpha, is it? I'm going to have to look up my own damn video and figure out how to use this. Oh man, that's so embarrassing. Okay. What year was this? Let's go to home. ZBrush 2024. What's new? 2025. What's new? Must have been 2024. IMM stroke update. Hey everybody, let's watch Michael Pavlovich. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you, Mike. If anybody else needs to know this, here's the 2024 what's new. So basically, it's not the standard brush we want, it's the insert brush. So we have a new insert brush with our thing, right? And right now it's set to a drag rect stroke. Here, let's go ahead and turn off X symmetry. Change this to, you can change the dots, and it'll, and I want to say, is that a stroke property? If we go in here to stroke, lazy mouse, lazy step. Oh, I guess it does. So if you turn on lazy mouse and use your lazy step, that'll space them out more. So instead of using a like what we did with the chain, where it was an object attached to a curve, which is nice. Sometimes it is nicer to have a curve that you can go and manipulate. But if you literally just want to put geometry down, have the IMM, change your stroke to dots or spray, and then you can just start spraying. Now there may be scale issues, flow issues that you have to contend with. See how they're all a bunch of different sizes. So this may be, remember at the very beginning of this, we were talking about tablet, use tablet off. No. So this looks like, use tablet. If we go in here to flow, let's crank flow up to 1. No. Scale variance. Scale variance of 0. Okay, good. So change your scale variance down to 0. They'll all be the same size. But I wonder, lazy step way up. Okay, go and crank your lazy step up. They're still not greatly spaced. Nanomesh might be your better bet than a spray stroke, or like a dot stroke with things spaced out. I guess you could do this. Whee. Oh. And one floating one. Yeah, Nanomesh might be a better bet for scattering on a surface. But yeah, if you did want to just have your IMM, just go in here and change your stroke to, here's drag dot. We'll just do 1. Spray. Freehand. Freehands and dots are probably the same. And the reason why mine are spaced so far out is because we went into the stroke menu, turned on lazy radius, and cranked that lazy step up. If you don't want to do that, there you go. And alternatively, we could say, go in here to our insert mesh brush and then just turn on curve. So now when we drag out this curve line, it'll have a string here. So if we go back to our cookie here, instead of having just repeated geometry, now we can go through here and we can drag this out. It's going to stick to our surface. We could even go in here to, we can update it. So we can say, hey, I want to make it a little bigger. Just tap to update. Oh, I want to make it a little smaller. Tap to update. You could even go in here to like curve modifiers and turn on size. So then it'll go thick to thin, or we can go like thin to thicker to thinner. Update. And all the other cool stuff you can do in here that you can do with curves that you can't necessarily do with just plopped geometry. Running out of time. Some brushes work. Okay, yes. Can you paint with geometry? Yeah. Do you find that this kind of encyclopedic pro knowledge is common amongst especially 3D artists, or is it more common to learn just the things you need to know to do your job well? Yeah, I'm a special case in that I like to learn. I mean, I can show you an example here. So I like to learn things and I like to teach things. Actually, let's just in case there's something in here. So for example, like Character Creator is a good example. When I went to go and learn Character Creator, I'm a massive note taker. So I will go through and I will like rewrite all of the documentation. I will rearrange it. I will move things around. And this is just how I learn, and cement things in my brain and allow me quick, easy, searchable functionality. And then I can distill this down into like, hey, filter this down into, oh, here's my articles that I wrote. Here's little processes. Here's my little step-by-step. And I'm like, how does this step work again? I can do a quick search here as opposed to having a million tabs open. Now, granted, this data doesn't update dynamically. So if it's old, out-of-date data, then I'm kind of hosed, right? But this is less for knowing the most up-to-date data and more for just embedding things in my brain. But to your point, like a lot of lot of people in a lot of positions. It's less of a, hey, learn a bunch of stuff. It's learn how to do something and then master it and do it well. I've never done that. I don't really do that, for better or for worse. I would love to. It's kind of the difference between like being a stand-up comedian and a rock star. Like if you want to do the same thing over and over and master that technique and master what you do, and you're just the master of blank, then that's like a rock star. You just go, you show up, you play your favorite hits, everybody loves you, and you're good to go. I'm more of the stand-up comedian type of developer where I'm constantly learning new stuff, teaching new things, and then if I don't use it a lot, I'll forget it. And I'm a mile wide, inch deep. So I'm not a master of anything at all, even close. But I know a little bit. I know just enough to be dangerous. ZBrush is one of those things where it's like I know, and I've been using it enough, and I've been doing the what's new stuff for long enough to where it kind of sticks a little better, and I can kind of keep up to date. Although I've been slacking, there's new 2025 functionality I need to go and learn. So, but I'm getting caught up at work, so we'll see. It's more of a me thing, or my type of developer thing. Although there are some people who are masters at all sorts of stuff, and they're also really deep knowledge of all sorts of things. So I don't know. My brain only can handle what it can handle. I wish it could handle more, but thanks, parents. Yes, and like so. Sorry, there was a question. Instances, how to work with instances of ZBrush. I want to make 2 spikes and multiply them as instances of ZBrush, change their sizes, maybe bend some, and can I move them to Unreal? You can, but you will have to commit them. Before you export to Unreal, you'll have to go, for example, on our Nanomesh thing here. These are just instances. In order to make this real geometry for Nanomesh, you got to go in here and say inventory 1 to mesh. If you're using another form of instance in ZBrush, which is array mesh, you got to go in here. You can turn on array mesh, but then you got to say make mesh. That makes it real mesh before you export. As far as, okay, now I do have some good videos for you as far as working with instances in very dynamic ways in ZBrush. It's not as easy or as straightforward as other programs, but there is quite a bit of interesting stuff you can do. Let me give you some links because we're running out of time. I got 3 minutes. it was instance. This one. Instance subtool geometry to model symmetry anywhere in space. So these two here, Nanomesh, actually these 3 right here. I'm going to just copy this whole link, but it's these 3, 47, 52, and 51. Have some really cool, and even 81. This little section right in here has some really good stuff for like having a plane that has an instance. You can move that plane wherever you want. You can hit edit geometry and you can edit across symmetry, and then it'll update on your planes that you have on your object. There's some cool stuff in there. So check that link out. Let's see. Next year I need to ask ZBrush if they can add some dynamic Dynamesh only on specific areas. That would be sick. Yes. I wonder, just in case anybody's stopping by, you can, it's not Dynamesh. In fact, I know some people who have kind of stopped using Dynamesh altogether, and instead of Dynamesh, they just use Sculptors Pro. So, for instance, if they need more resolution, if you just hold down Shift and then take your Z intensity down to 0, it's not gonna mess with your silhouette or anything. It's literally just gonna subdivide your geometry underneath your brush. So you can just make your brush size smaller, hold down Shift with, again, Z intensity down to 0, and it's just going to locally subdivide. And the smaller your brush is, and this is all, man, I don't use this a ton, so this is where I would still go back here and be like, I want to say like ZBrush 2019 had a bunch of stuff. What's new? 2018 has a bunch of Sculptors Pro in its playlist that'll talk about like the dynamic adapt to size, combines, subdiv, undivide, all those settings. Anyway, you can do that. So it is kind of like working with Dynamesh with local subdivisions. So if I turn this off and then we grab our standard brushes, this off here, and we sculpt through that one section, or we do a drag rect with a star alpha and focal shift down, you're going to see right across here, it's low res, medium res, high res, based on that local subdivision. So you can actually go in here pretty close. If I try to sculpt like a smiley face out here, it's super nasty. Smiley face in here, not too bad. Smiley face out here, really terrible. So, kind of. No one will kill you. But yes, exactly that. Sculptris Pro is kind of a way to kind of get it. Possible to apply deformations, inflate, or anything like that to those sprayed instances, but have each instance be affected a bit differently, some more inflated, others less. You know, it's kind of hacky, just like everything I've said today. But if we go back, let's say tap off, let's say hide point, let's say delete hidden. I said tap off. Oh wait, I don't have a curve brush. There we go. Now we have split hidden. We have scattered objects, right? You can polygroups. If you go in here to polygroups, auto groups, that's going to give you a different polygroup for every single one. That's not what we want. We want to randomize our polygroups. So I want to say, I wanted to say maybe it was all one contiguous mesh. You could do random. I was hoping there would be like a randomize polygroup you could use where you could literally go through here and it would do something like, you know, just grab a random sampling of these and make them all one polygroup. So then that way you could isolate them. You could just literally hit W, control tap, and then inflate these at more or less to get different sizes. Having said that, what I was really thinking in the back of my head was this right here, repeat the similar parts. I don't know that it's gonna do, it's not gonna do what you want, I don't think, but it is really interesting to where if you don't have Nanomesh and you just have a bunch of the same object, you can use this to apply whatever changes you make to one object, it'll apply it to the rest of them. So check this video out. I think, I don't know that it's not gonna do what you want, although I wonder, is there a way to, there might be a way to like dynamic cloth sim inflate amount. Oh, no gravity. Expand. Nah, I'll do them all at the same time. Somebody may have a better, more elegant solution for randomizing inflates. That's a tough one. In ZBrush anyways. Other programs not so much. Houdini can do anything. If you really want to go nuts, go to Houdini. Cool. Awesome. All right. Thanks everybody. 6:30. Weird live stream. Glad my computer's working. Sorry about the 720p output. I'm going to change it right now. Take it easy. Later, everybody. Love you all. See you